Lithuania is making their own decision now, and they're deciding to expand upon the blockade of Kaliningrad. Shocking, I know. Disastrous, I know. Scary, I know. Let's take a look at the story and break it down. We covered a really shocking, scary story here the other day in which we announced that Lithuania allegedly, keyword, at the discretion of the EU, in their fifth round of sanctions that were passed against Russia, decided that they were going to block shipments of Russian goods into Kaliningrad. What is Kaliningrad, you might ask? Kaliningrad is a place that a lot of American liberals just found out about like 2 days ago, but now they say it must be sanctioned and it must be wiped off the face of the earth and Slava Ukraini. And if you don't support that, and we can't find Kaliningrad on a map, but if you don't support that, then you're a Russian asset. Kaliningrad is a Russian exclave to the west of mainland Russia. It's surrounded by NATO member states. It borders Poland, for example. But ever since the end of World War II, there's been an agreement, formal agreement, with the assurances given that Lithuania would allow for railway transport of Russian goods to enter Kaliningrad, because Kaliningrad is a part of Russia. Kaliningrad is a beautiful area of Russia. There's a bunch of resorts there. A lot of people go to vacation there. And now Lithuania has said that due to the fifth round of sanctions, we are going to have to cut off nearly 50+% of the Russian goods that enter into Kaliningrad. Now, I will say this is not the end of the world for Russia, but it is a direct violation of the promises, the assurances, and the international law that is supposed to be upheld by these states that care so much about the international law and Russia breaking the international law. But they're not doing that. They're saying because of these illegal you can't call them unilateral, but I mean, there's no authority which says that the EU placing sanctions on Russia is legal in the same way that unilateral sanctions by the US are illegal, right? There's nothing that says that they're legal. They're still illegal sanctions, but they say that because of the fifth round of sanctions, we can't allow Russian goods to enter Kaliningrad, and people in Kaliningrad freaked out. They started to go panic buying at the stores. The governor of Kaliningrad said, it's fine. We have ships that are going to be going around and shipping goods that would otherwise be on railway to Kaliningrad. We have planes. We have, cargo planes that are going to be doing the same thing. By the end of the year, we'll have 5 to 7 ships that are able to do this. No worries, right? The problem is it's going to be far more expensive. And that hurts average, citizens in Kaliningrad. As always, the sanctions hurt the civilians the most. Just like in Venezuela, when the deep state oligarchs got together and said, we want to put sanctions on Maduro because his election was illegitimate, despite the fact that we say that Venezuela has the most secure, open, transparent elections on the planet, and he clearly won. We're going to sanction Maduro because we don't like him, and he's not giving us his oil for free. Pennies on the dollar. He's trying to nationalize their oil and share the profits with the people of Venezuela. We're going to sanction his economy. Well, when they did that, what happened? Special rapporteur on unilateral coercive measures at the United Nations, Elena Duhan, reported that the Western sanctions that were led by the U.S., caused a 99% decline in the economy in Venezuela. So you hear people on MSNBC and CNN say, Venezuela's economy is in ruin because of the petrostate they've created. Well, I mean, sure, there's definitely, you can't deny there's been some problems surrounding that. I mean, anytime you're a commodities producer, you're not going through a commodities boom, a commodities cycle, you're gonna have some difficult times. We are not commodity producers here in the United States. We're about to have some difficult times because we're about to go through a commodities boom and we're not commodities producers. But when you look at the state of the Venezuelan economy today, no, it's not because they're a de facto gas station acting as a country. It's not because they're a petro state. It's because of the sanctions. It's as simple as that. Well, these sanctions on Kaliningrad are going to do the same exact thing. They're going to try to weaken the economy. They're going to try to hurt average civilians to get them to turn against their elected leaders, democratically elected leaders, okay? Well, now Russia has basically said, look, you don't open up these railways, This, first of all, this is like a violation of international law and a violation of the agreements we've had since the end of World War II. We're well within our rights to take any measures imaginable that we want to go into Lithuania and make sure that these railways continue operating. We're well within our rights to do it. Now, what would that mean? That would mean that you would have Russia going into a NATO member state, and that'd be a bad situation because you have NATO member state being invaded. Essentially, they'd frame it as being invaded by Russia, and they'll be like, "This is unprovoked. How can they do this?" Well, they're doing this because you violated international law. Well, when they did this, when they said that they were going to do this, Lithuania got very worried. They ran to the EU and they said, "EU, you said we had to sanction these goods, and we sanctioned them, and we didn't allow the goods to go into Kaliningrad. Now they're saying they're going to invade our country. What do? We don't want to end up like Zelensky." So they went crying to the EU, and the EU says, "Oh, this is not our fault." Ursula von der Leyen, this is not our fault. What are you talking about? This sanctions package, you make your own decision. This is your own decision. You make your own decision. Have fun. Lithuania is making their own decision now, and they're deciding to expand upon the blockade of Kaliningrad. Shocking, I know. Disastrous, I know. Scary, I know. Let's take a look at the story and break it down. Lithuania ready to expand Kaliningrad blockade, according to their president. The country is prepared to face retaliatory steps by Russia. Well, that's not good. Vilnius is ready to expand the list of goods banned from transit to Russia's exclave of Kaliningrad, should the European Union introduce new sanctions against Moscow. Lithuania President Gitanas Nausėda said on Wednesday, the country is also ready to face any potential retaliatory measures Russia might introduce, he told Reuters in an interview. Don't worry, NATO will have our back. The EU, NATO, they will have our back. Okay, is that really the path we want to go down? Quote, we are ready and we are prepared for unfriendly actions from Russia, such as disconnection from the Brel power grid system or others. The president stressed that the transit restrictions were not a sovereign move by Lithuania, but merely the implementation of the EU sanctions against Moscow introduced over the ongoing conflict in Ukraine. Quote, we feel the support of the European Union because this is a decision made by the European Union, he said, adding that the country was ready to expand the list of banned goods should the bloc introduce new restrictions against Russia. Quote, we are looking forward to implementing the next stages of the sanctions. They're referring to the 6th round of sanctions, okay? That was just passed. These take a while to implement. So this was the 5th round of sanctions that sparked this, but it's been a while since the 5th round of sanctions, right? It could remove some of the current tensions, which are not in the interests of either the European Union or Russia. Over the weekend, Lithuania's national railway operator banned the flow of Russian goods between the region and the rest of Russia, citing guidelines from the European Commission. The restrictions have also affected road traffic into the exclave, according to Kaliningrad officials. Both Vilnius and the EU insist that the restrictions do not amount to a blockade of the exclave. Oh, it's not a blockade, technically. It's not a blockade. What do you call it? What do you call it when you say, oh, we're happy to expand the amount of restrictions of goods we're going to allow into Kaliningrad? What do you call that? What do you call that when you disallow people to enter a country? What do you call it? I don't know. I mean, that kind of just sounds like a blockade to me. You know, am I delusional? Or does that sound like a blockade to you? It sounds like a blockade to me. And now they're trying to not act like it's a blockade because they don't want to suffer the repercussions in actuality. Though they act like, we're tough. We will deal with the retaliatory measures. Putin doesn't stand a chance against Lithuania, said no one ever. Crazy stuff coming out of Lithuania and the European Union. But I'm not surprised given how this war and the sanction warfare has gone thus far. Thanks for watching that episode of The Dive. If you'd like to support independent journalism, be sure to subscribe and consider becoming a member on my Patreon using the link below.